Welcome to our authenticity project. I've invited a great friend, Rachel Goodman. We got to talking about just how much the industry of online marketing and solopreneurship has gotten us into this weirdness around being consistent in our marketing. So we just wanted to have a conversation about that with you guys and talk about a little bit what that creates and how we can approach it a little bit differently, possibly. Welcome, Rachel. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure as always. We
Yeah.
have many great conversations together, you and I, and we often think that we should record them and share them with other people. So this is one of those moments.
Yes, exactly. Like there's so many conversations I'm like, I wish somebody was recording that. We are brilliant, by the way. You should just hang out, in the corner of our rooms, and so you can drop into some amazingness. But yeah, it's one of my pet peeves for sure. It's like the whole conversation around consistency. Because number one, consistency looks completely different for different people. And
Mhm.
when we say or threaten, we can talk about the logistics of social media, but it's kind of a threatening statement to say you'll disappear social media when you don't do a certain amount of posting and all of this nonsense.
Mhm.
So yeah, so for me, it's kind of one of those things like, yeah, yes and no. You're not going to disappear completely.
Mm-mm.
Um, and honestly, I don't see that much variation and I don't post consistently at all, you
Mm.
know?
Me neither.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So so that's my biggest thing is, stop telling people that they're literally going to disappear because they believe it because they don't know anything about social media, you know?
Mhm.
I mean, your
Mhm.
followers are your followers. They're not disappearing.
No, and quite honestly, the past few months I have been not very active on social media because I've been so busy teaching.
Mm.
Right. And the thing, with me as a teacher who is an innovator, I need the agility. Like if I was posting all this time that I would, have been so busy teaching, trying to say fill my schedule for 3 months from now, where my energy is at 3 months from now and what I'm feeling called to teach about 3 months from now might not match what I would have been talking about all that time and leading up to, right?
Mm.
So then it would have been inauthentic for me, right? And for me, the agility is number one. The agility is, being able to respond to whatever I'm feeling called to teach about, is the most important thing for me. And if I have to always hold myself, it would feel like I was holding myself hostage to a past version of me. That's not the life I want to live. Right? I'm on an
Yeah.
evolutionary path. I don't even want to be the same person tomorrow that I am today. And that's not a lack of consistency. That's me living in connection with my highest alignment. Right. Just
Exactly.
super clear.
Yes,
Right.
just so we're clear,
Yeah.
that it is, it's, changing and how we change and who we are today as compared to yesterday, as compared to tomorrow is
Mhm.
part of being human. And if you're not evolving, if you're not living into the next kind of level for yourself, then it can breed again inauthenticity. So there's some things that are consistent, and that's what I found is that, for me, there's some things that just never change. Like basically my ideals, why I'm interested in the things that I'm interested in. And so a lot of my marketing sometimes looks almost irrelevant, right? But
Mhm.
it's just me showing me instead of me showing a product or something like that. So
Yeah.
that's totally off too from what everybody recommends, you know?
But there's this a new paradigm. And the thing is that there are many new paradigms actually all being birthed right now. And the thing is that, people want to know us, and
Yeah.
that's fairly new. And especially for people my age, like I'm a Gen Xer, I'm going to be 50 in a few years. And we were not taught to just show up as us and have people magnetized towards us. We were taught in the very old paradigm of be the same every day, especially, I'm professionally trained dancer. we had to be very consistent. We had to be very much
Mhm.
the same every day, no matter what the cost. And I remember my last performance in Vancouver before I moved away from living in a big city in Canada. Well, for Canada, it's a big city. I had a broken ankle and I did 5 numbers in that show.
Ay,
That was being consistent, right?
I
At
can't
what
imagine.
cost?
Yeah, yeah,
And so
yeah.
that's the thing, and if we think about it, if we take a step back and we just take a few breaths and we think about, like, that's very old paradigm. That's consumerist, that's conveyor belt, that's every, burger looks the same, every product that comes off the production line looks the same. Is that really the world we want to perpetuate? Not me. That's
That's
not the
not the
world
world
I
I
want.
wanted to live in, much less perpetuate. And then
Right.
it's just not the world we live in today. It's the
Do that.
world is changing. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy amounts of change are happening every day now. And if we
Mhm.
don't have the flexibility to keep up with that, the agility, right, to keep up with that, then you're probably putting yourself in a worse situation rather than a better one, you know?
Right.
Um, and yeah, and I think that's a big metric of when you say consistency, consistent for who? Is always kind of my next question is like, well,
Mm.
your consistent isn't my consistent, you know? We all have different speeds of the amount of energy that we have, the amount of even our communication, right? So if we're
Mhm.
out of alignment in our communication style, then it feels inauthentic.
Yeah.
And I just don't talk a lot, you know. I don't, you know, my most close and heartfelt loved ones. It's not a, you know, a constant conversation. It's just
Mhm.
not the way it is with me.
Mhm.
And so it would, for me, it would feel inauthentic to just be constantly, you know, throwing things out there. Now, I try to keep in touch with those who want to be in touch with me,
Mhm.
but again, it's not to me something to keep up with. It's just something that, you know, here's a little something, guys, and
Mhm.
I made this for you, right? And so I'll send it out, but it's not something where I'm like, okay, I must do 5 posts, you know, on 5 different platforms every day. I don't feel it at all.
Oh my gosh, that would exhaust me so quickly. That to me is like the fast track, you know, yeah, the fast lane to burnout. I can't do that. Like, honestly, and it does feel very unauthentic to me to do that as well. So the way that I talk about balance, because I teach holistic wellness, I've been doing it for 26 years now, it's more than half my life. And the way that I talk about balance is, we have, like, this is our base of support, right? And if we're constantly giving, like, outward, 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 guess where we're going to
Mm,
land? Boom, right?
yeah.
And I know that for me, if I'm constantly, and I don't mean giving in terms of serving or teaching, I do that all the time, but I'm staying aligned as I do that. But if I'm always trying to get people to pay attention to me, notice me, listen to me, I get exhausted very, 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 very quickly. And I don't have fun. And then honestly,
Yeah.
what's the point? I mean, of course, to serve, but we don't want to be martyrs. We don't
Yeah.
want to be martyrs. And that might be a very new paradigm for lots of people, especially women. We've been really trained to martyr ourselves to give, and it's even romanticized, that, oh, the more that we are martyrs, oh, at our funerals, everyone will say, oh, wasn't she a great martyr? Well, guess
Yeah.
what? It doesn't
She's
help us if
always
we're 6 feet
giving.
under, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah, so I'm pretty passionate about it, this topic, because the world needs strong women, well resourced and able to stay in that balanced place, not martyring ourselves, so that
Exactly.
we serve for a short time and then we are gone.
Right.
That I don't want to do that. I want to have a sustainable way of serving. And at 26 years, thank you. I have gone through burnout. I just went through it 2 weeks ago, but guess what? I bounced back really quickly because I know how,
Yeah.
right? Part
Yeah.
of what I teach. And so one of the things that I say is, like, we have to be willing to ask ourselves difficult questions,
Mm,
right? That's really the key. Like, who am I doing this for? There's so many questions we could ask ourselves. It'll be different for everybody. But I
Mhm.
noticed if I'm starting to go into martyrdom, no way. I pull myself out of that right away because I didn't come here to be a martyr. I came here to serve.
Right,
And
and there's
they're
a
not the
big
same.
difference between service and martyrdom. And I think again, as you say, as women, we have been taught this martyrdom level of service.
Mhm.
And so if we're not constantly giving, if we're not constantly there for others, if we're not constantly, showing how much we are there for people, then we're not proper women, I find this even in my friendships, like where just saw a post the other day of somebody who is one of those people who just needs a lot of support from their friends, but they are a coach, and so they have gotten to the self-realization that um, different friends like show up in different ways as supporters, right?
Mm.
And I replied because I was like, "Oh my God, thank you so much for this post." I was like,
Mhm.
to be honest, this is one of the reasons I don't have that many friends because I can't just pop in and show up and support people in random ways.
Mhm.
My energy just doesn't work that way, and so I've always avoided female friends for this reason because there's this kind of unwritten rule that if you won't answer the phone at 2 o'clock in the morning, then you're not a real friend.
Mhm.
um and I was like, well, I don't know how to live like that, so I don't know. So I guess I won't have friends,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
at least not friends that can't understand that, right? So
Right.
as I've grown, I just help people understand like how I function and how my
Mhm.
energy functions, um and then just let the chips fall where they may. But
Mhm.
I invite them to like just understand that that's the way it is, and I also invite others to do the same and feel free to do the same. Like tell people if you have the capacity to hear their 20-year long sob story. Like tell people, like just tell them
Yeah.
like, well, honestly, like I'm feeling really run down right now.
Mhm.
Like, can we do this on Sunday over tea or
Mhm.
whatever?
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah.
Absolutely. I call it bandwidth. And it's interesting that you brought that up, that specific, example, because just last night I was having what I call a squeezy time, squeezy moment, those moments where it's like and I
Yeah.
reached out to one of my friends. We've been friends since 1993.
Wow.
And she's one of my oldest friends, and she didn't answer because she was busy. And
Yeah.
that's okay. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, she's not my friend. She wasn't there for me, blah, blah, blah. I was like, no, she's just busy. I just need to reach out to someone else in that moment. Right. And so
Yeah.
I did. And
Yeah.
that's it. I'm not mad at her. I don't hold it against her. I'm not like,
Right.
where was she?
Where was
You
she? I called her a
Honestly,
week ago.
right?
Yeah,
Like that's almost 30 years we've been friends. And, like I honestly, I think, I guess maybe it's because of the age of social media. It's just my theory. We maybe have this misconception now that if someone doesn't respond right away or they're not there right away, then it's like what you're saying earlier, that they're gonna disappear. But
yeah,
really long-term stable relationships they're not like that. One missed opportunity is not gonna wreck a stable relationship.
absolutely.
It's
I
just
mean,
not.
I wasn't always able to communicate, how I felt. And so I literally ghosted my friends. Like I just be like, I'm not here. I had this friend that was like a pretty new friend at the time, but uh just really persistent. She just has that she's a go-getter, you know what I'm saying? And so she would call and call, and I'm just like, I did not answer my phone back then. I pretty much still don't.
Mhm.
And then she came by the house and I freaked out. I was just like, what is happening? And I was just like, oh my gosh. And it was like coming to my first experience where somebody kind of blew past my walls.
Mm, mhm.
And I was just like, I don't know what's going on. But we are still friends to this day with all the ghosting that I've done over the years. And it's going kind of like about a decade. And even like my early friends where I literally didn't talk, much less communicate.
Mhm,
Um, I have a friend that is over 30 years. We met in eighth grade. So, but you know, she knows she falls off the face of the planet, I fall off the face of the planet, and then we just get back together, you know,
mhm,
and it's
mhm,
never accusatory. It's just catch up time, you know?
mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's really, there's so much in this. There's so much goodness in this. And it sounds like we're talking about friendships only here, but we're talking about all layers
I'm
of it. I
talking about
know.
relationships,
Oh, right.
right?
Right.
It's like
Building
trusting
trust.
people that if they are truly feel connected to you, that they'll feel connected to you, you know, a week from now as much as they feel connected today, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm. Mhm.
And um and
Yeah,
yeah, I think also like the whole sustainability thing because, you know, again, for me, it's not even, you know, and for a long time, and I'm kind of at a pivot point at this point, but for a long time, it wasn't even worth like going and seeking friends because I would have to manage like how they perceive our time together, like what does it mean to be a friend of mine, you know, like it would be like a whole job, right, where I'm like
yeah,
indoctrinating them into my non-normalness, right? And so yeah, so it's not even something I would go out and pursue. And think of what that means translated to business,
right.
right? That
Mhm.
you aren't actually wanting clients, you're not actually wanting people in your social media sphere because you don't want them to be dependent on you showing up every day,
Mm-mm. 'Cause
right?
that's not empowering. I'm here to empower people, not
Yeah,
to make them dependent on me.
exactly.
Like I
Yeah.
just said a few minutes ago, I've been teaching holistic wellness for 26 years. I know
Mm,
some things at this point, and I don't want people dependent on me. That's
I
not
love
what I'm here
that.
for. I want to empower people. Does it mean
Yeah.
that they'll work with me for a period of time? Sure. Everyone's going to be different. But the whole point is to empower them, not to have them, oh my gosh, where's Rachel? I won't be okay if I can't find Rachel. Mm-mm, mm-mm. No.
Right, right. That totally wouldn't work for you. It doesn't work for me either.
Mhm,
You know, yeah, and we were just talking actually before we got on the call about how your personal energy level does often, especially for empaths, dictate how other people show up to and for you and with you, right?
mhm,
And so I was just talking about how I just hit deep luteal in my cycle 2 days ago. And so, like, I woke up yesterday and I was just like, no. And I had like a full day. And I had another 3 appointments. All of them had canceled. I had woke up and did my first couple appointments, and then the rest of the three had canceled.
mhm.
And it's kind of something that's not rare, right? We've talked about how it's not rare for us because your energy feeds out into like whoever you're working for or with, and then again whoever is going to show up as well. So again, when you're talking about marketing and social media, like, and you're doing it feeling like this is not what I want to be doing, you're literally people are canceling you. Like people are just like I don't know why she's talking right now, but I'm not feeling it, right? you know
Yeah. Well, as I said, a few weeks ago, I was feeling pretty burnt out for sure.
yeah.
And, my classes weren't as full during that time. And then as I was sharing with you, in that conversation that you were just referring to before we came on, yesterday my classes were packed,
Yeah.
packed because I'm restored. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the thing is, if we're running around trying to get clients and students and we're having burnout or difficulty keeping up with what we've already got, the universe can read that energy and is not going to send more when we're needing to restore ourselves, um or it might send more, but maybe not the type of people that we want to work with, like you were just saying a few minutes ago, might not be a match for us, right?
Mm.
But the thing is, when we do have the capacity for more, then more comes, right? And that's part of this old paradigm too, is more is better, more is better, more is better, more is not better, more is not better.
Exactly. That's a whole nother thing. Like
More
I
is just more.
more is just more. And like if
Just
it's
more.
and especially if it's not the right more, like it's not better. And yeah, and the reason why like it's so funny because I feel like also there's kind of this thing where people are used to cancellations, but not in my studio. Like I very
Mm,
rarely have cancellations. Like people are
same.
very consistent.
Mm,
And I haven't had a cancellation and like this year, this is the first time people canceled and literally three of them, right?
mm,
So the fact that like just that fact again, I feel like people, we think of energy as ephemeral, not provable, but it
mhm,
is if you're paying attention.
mhm,
It's totally proving itself if you're paying attention,
mhm,
right? And it's these little things are showing us the cycles of the bigger things, right?
mhm,
So yeah, it includes like how many on your list doesn't really matter if your percentage of open rates are going down. This is
right.
another kind of area in which we're like, you must, stay consistent, like don't uh email all the time and all that kind of thing. I can't tell you how much I don't email my people.
Same, same.
And my open rates are very consistent. My
Mine
open
too.
rates are steadily 23% or 23% or better.
Yeah, I'm around 25 point something because also I only email when I have something to say that feels like it's authentic bubbling up from me, or I
Yeah.
want to offer, to come into a program, but sometimes I honestly even forget to do that because
Yeah, me
again,
too.
I'm serving the people that I already have, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because they're honestly, business by referral is so much more powerful. And if I'm doing a sucky job at serving the people that I already have, then really, like, what's,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So I put my energy into serving the people I already have, and then a lot of new business comes to me through referral through them, rather than me trying to get people's attention that are maybe paying attention, maybe not, you know,
Yeah.
and trying to
Or
convince
maybe
them that,
ready, maybe not.
right.
Yeah,
Hmm.
totally. I've had so I've always been interested in that because I've never run my business by referral, at least not purposefully, like with intention. But people end up hearing about me, and I'm always
Hmm.
surprised. I'm like, really? Like I didn't even think my friend, like my clients talked about me, you know. But from the most random places, like I'll get messages. Oh, I heard you're doing an amazing job. Da, 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 da. And I'm just like, oh. It's like I didn't okay. I need to
Hmm.
figure out what they're saying because it's like I don't know how to I barely know how to explain what I do to my clients, much less how they're gonna explain it to somebody, else.
Mhm.
So I'm like, oh, I gotta figure out what they're saying. And then also it's always kind of like three generations later. It's
Mhm.
very interesting how people find out about me. And so it's kind of hard to find out who had that conversation that they heard the conversation from. So I'm just
Mhm.
like, wait a minute. So I can't really, it's hard to ask.
Right. Right. Well, that's the thing is we never really know, like, what we are for someone else,
Yeah.
and until they tell us, right?
Yeah.
And, it's interesting, one of the things I was doing a few months ago was, like, I'm working on a new website. Sure, I'm taking my time.
Me too.
But, hey,
In
that's
my
it's all
head, I'm working on it.
and, so I was collecting testimonials, and it's so interesting, like, I already had them, they were all in my email inbox, I didn't
Yeah,
have
I
to
just gotta
ask,
go.
they were there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just collect
Go
them
get
from
them.
the already there collection. And the things that people say that they get from me are, they're not the things that I necessarily would have um, thought. It's like the cheerfulness, the calm, the upbeat, the presence, that sort of thing. And well, I know myself to be those ways. I guess I hadn't quite been aware of how important those things are to people, and
Yeah.
how that my way of being is really what they are magnetized towards.
Yeah, I'm always surprised at how many people say that my sessions are fun because I never thought of myself as like a fun person. I still feel like I'm figuring out what fun is, honestly. I'm like 40 trying to figure out what fun is, but it's true. Like I honestly uh I feel like people have other kinds of fun than I have. So there may be fun for me, but not always the same way somebody else would have fun. Anyways, like a lot of my clients say that my sessions are fun, which I'm always a little surprised about because I feel like I'm a very serious person,
Mhm.
you
I
know?
I feel that way myself, in many ways too. I'm a very it's kind of, similar to what you were saying earlier, that I don't have a ton of I mean, I guess I have a lot of friends, but I'm not someone you won't see me sitting around hanging out very often, once in a while.
Yeah,
Um and it's because I'm very purpose driven. I'm very, very purpose driven. And I'm very aware that I want to make the most of my time here on earth and serve. And that does make me out of step with a lot of people for sure. And so it can feel like I'm not fun when they're all sitting around, just doing their thing, and I'm going back to work, or whatever it is,
right. Or going to
and
another course or reading
right,
another book. Like
right,
it's
or
fun for me, but yeah,
right, like
yeah,
teaching, classes. Like for me, I love that. It is fun, and it's work. And so I could seem like I'm like all work, no play, but I'm not, because my work is play. You
yeah,
know, and
totally.
so it's like you're saying, consistent according to who? Consistent is such a good question.
Yeah,
Consistent according to who? That's really the crux of it. Hey.
yeah. Because I'll tell you what, like what I've noticed in my marketing and others' marketing as well um, is that however you like to receive marketing is probably how your clients would prefer their marketing. And I'm
Mm,
not saying across the board, of course you're going to get variation, but generally, if somebody emailing you twice a day is on your nerves, then you are not a email twice a day person, you know?
yeah.
Like, don't do it if you don't like it.
Mhm.
And so I think there's other ways to connect to people, and the ways that you would prefer are often the ways your clients will prefer, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that really makes me think of something that you and I have talked about many times before, is that when we open our programs and our offerings, we basically say it a couple of times. Sometimes I'll only even say it once, and maybe I could say it more than once, in case
I
people
know
miss
I
the
did
one.
that over the Christmas, and
But
people are just
the
like,
thing is, like, our clients and students know that about us. They know that we offer things. They know where they can look for the information to find out what we're offering. So it's just not that we're not being open, but at the same time, we're not, offering something and then talking about it again and again and saying, "Oh, we're opening it back up again. Oh, we're
Yeah.
opening it." It's like, no, no, no,
No,
no.
no.
Like, our programs open at these times of the year, and these are the times. And then it also, this was something you were saying a while ago, and I don't know if I'm going to repeat it, if I've, changed into my own, interpretation of it. But, it's like it also gives people a chance to like save up if they want to, or plan. Like I plan my life 3, 4, 5 months ahead. I always have, just because of teaching, right? I have to know what I'm teaching, for
Yeah.
chunks of the year, right? And even now I'm planning a year ahead, and but I still have the agility, just to be super clear. But the thing is, like, people like to be able to plan. They like to know, like, what they're, they can plan to save up for something. They can plan to know when a program's going to open. Um, you know, we like to. There's also this thing of, if someone, says they can't afford something in a moment, then they must not really want it. Well, that's not necessarily so. Come on,
Yeah.
sometimes people do need to plan and save up a little for something, and
Well,
that's being responsible. They're being
yeah,
responsible for their finances, you know?
and sometimes it's just easier to do something than at other times too. It's like an easier decision when
Yeah.
you have everything, set up and ready to go. And or even if you have been thinking about something for a while and you're like, oh yeah, I still desperately want to do this, right? Like,
Mhm.
so having again, not assuming the fast, the quick rich scheme. I'm sorry, words aren't my don't want to come out that way. But like, yeah, not assuming that everything is going to be fast.
Right.
Even my coach was talking about the other day of this lady that likes to market that, in a year she built $1 million business from scratch. And she's like, that's not fair. Like, that's not true because you didn't build it, right? You didn't build it from scratch. You paid a full-fledged professional team to build your
Mhm.
business,
Mhm.
right? And yeah, it does take that person knowing what they're doing and knowing how
Mhm.
they want to present that,
Mhm.
for that to be successful, even if you do have a team. But it's still a wholly different thing from somebody like a solopreneur, like building a business from scratch,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
because most people
And
aren't pouring that kind of money right from the beginning like that.
right, and it goes back to, for me, like what you were just saying goes back to that whole, like, why are we doing it, right? So for me, it's, again, it's about service and sustainability. Sure, money is wonderful. We all, money sure makes life easier. I don't have anything against it. I'm happy to receive money. That's,
I like money. Yeah.
sure, and I think that's, a good thing to acknowledge for each person, where everyone is at with that. And at the same time, for me, um, you know, it's really about, why am I doing this, and being able to know, like, that I want to be able to do it for a long time, or until I feel ready to stop, you
Oh,
know,
totally.
and
Yeah.
not have it be about a quick things. What I found is that anytime I go into a quick thing, I'm in survival. I'm
Hmm.
not in service, I'm in survival.
Me too.
And it's no judgment, right? Like, it can be, if that can happen, right? It's no judgment.
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes it's real. Like, when push comes to shove, sometimes you need money.
Mhm.
It's just not, and again, no judgment. Like, and I know some
Mhm.
people like this is just what they do and how they do it. But for business, it's not the optimal place to come from.
Right.
Um, I think more so now than ever. Again, I feel like there's been an energy shift where,
Mhm.
old school, yeah, like people, there's a certain level of people just respecting the fact that you're a go-getter and that you're, everybody needs money and, they're going to just be okay with that. But I feel like there's a little bit of a shift now where people are expecting you to be there for some reason of service.
Yes.
Um, Even in our corporations, like we're looking for people who are attuned to the community and concerned for the community's needs. And so
Mhm.
people that don't show consideration, we come
Mhm.
after, right?
Mhm.
As a society.
Mhm.
So, in knowing that and seeing that change, where something like an organization like NFL would have never been like Black Lives Matter, right? They would have never done something like before, but now they're speaking about it because the society is saying, well, why are we giving you all this money if you're not concerned about the society's well-being, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so if you think it's like if they're being confronted under that, then our businesses are being asked to represent at least some level of service, you know,
Yes.
of how we're coming from service for at some level.
And for me, like, this is what when I talk about, like, holistic alignment and intentional living, right? It's like, again, that's keeps us from burning out too, or just having a business that lasts a year or two or whatever and then is gone. We it's really like, why are we doing it? Why are we getting out of bed in the morning? For me, I work predominantly with elders. I work with all age people, but I'm really passionate about working with elders. And for me, the thought of, an elder sitting alone in their place with nobody talking to them, nobody learning from them, nobody benefiting from their lifetime of experience, nobody hearing their stories, that's just something I'm like, not on my watch. It's just
Mm.
not happening on my watch. So that's what my passion is, right? And that's what gets me up. And everything else in my work is when I'm working with the elders, which I said is most of what I do, is secondary to that, right?
Yeah.
It's about who I'm being. I'm being somebody that they can come to, right? And for
Yes.
me, that's what's satisfying. Sure,
So
money's
beautiful.
satisfying. Sure, it's satisfying to be able to go
Yeah.
buy the thing you want and all of that. But is it satisfying for that long? You know, I used to be very achievement driven. You know, I had my master's degree by the time I was 26, and I remember finishing my master's degree and just thinking to myself, well, that's great. And I graduated cum laude. I was nominated for the faculty thesis prize, all of that. And I didn't feel satisfaction really, not really. I felt emptiness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember, and I actually went through a depression after that because I remember thinking to myself, well, geez, why did I do all that? You know, and of
Yeah.
course, you know why I did it in
Had
my
the
work
same
all the
question
time,
after my master's degree.
right? And the thing
Yeah.
is, like, I use the knowledge every day. So there was obviously a point, you know,
Right.
but because I was focusing on the achievement, it felt very empty to me.
Mhm.
Whereas now, you know, when I get out of bed and I know that there's, you know, groups of elders that they're telling me their lives are better because of me, you
Yeah.
know, they tell me constantly, that's satisfying.
Yeah.
I feel satisfied.
Totally. I mean, I always say this literally, if it wasn't my life's work, I wouldn't do it.
Hmm.
Period. I'm just um I think there are other, like, again, I hadn't gotten to a place where I no longer wanted to work corporate and all that kind of thing. And I did start a business, but it wasn't, me. It wasn't my work. It was crystals, which I loved. And I was like,
Mm.
these are great because I don't have to sell them.
Yeah.
Because crystals are like speak to people, so that either they
Yeah.
want them or they don't. Like it's very easy marketing.
Yeah.
It's like, look, oh, it's sparkling at you. you know, so it's very easy. but but yeah, in the midst of that, I realized what I was supposed to be doing, right? And if it wasn't coming from that place, and if I didn't know the difference it was making in my clients' lives, I would not be able to sustain it at all, at
Mhm.
all. Week to week, much less month to month, much less year to year.
Mhm.
And I think that's a very pertinent question to ask yourself. If you do have that privilege of saying, this isn't um, all about money for me,
Mhm.
then can you keep going? Can you keep doing what you're doing today?
Mhm.
If you know it's a temporary thing, if you know you have like a go time during your year or during, your cycles of marketing, then that totally makes sense. It's like, yeah, no, I don't have to keep going because this is just for this month, so I can get this one thing off the ground. But but yeah, like looking long term, can you go that hard every year for the next 26 years? Like that's what it would look like, right? And so I think, and again, like if you're, and even in the shininess of the internet and the prettiness of the websites and the of the photos, like how much are you doing? Are you presenting yourself like $1 million business and your capacity is a $100,000 business?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because there's a different level also of what clients expect from $1 million business
Mhm. Mhm.
than a $100,000 business. And it costs
Mhm.
money, in other words,
Mhm.
like to serve your clients at that level, the amount of customer service, all of that
Mhm.
looks different.
Big time.
And so you're asking, like, ask yourself really, like, are you willing to sustain a team that would be able to give them $1 million business service? And if
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
20 years, like literally, like it's a normal career span, right?
Yeah.
Um, and if you're not, then why?
Right.
Right? Why?
Mhm. I love what you just said. So I used to send out emails every week, called Resilience Cup Refills. And what I started to realize was I had this image in my head one day because it was just me. And for a while I had an assistant helping me with it. But I'm a mom. I'm a single mom. I mean, I co-parent with my son's dad, but I'm a financially single mom, and doing everything myself and all of that. And so, like, what I felt like, I had this image of me rushing around filling all these people's cups, and I thought, whoa, a lot of these people are way more well resourced than I am. What am I doing? And
Mm,
it got to be ridiculous. It was like a cartoon image in my head. And I thought, well, this is, and then I was hiring an assistant to help me. And then it was like my open rate wasn't necessarily going up. With the more I was emailing, it was actually going down. And it wasn't anything that either of us was doing wrong. It just was what happened. Right. And the thing is that what I started to feel was like, it was like starting to feel like a job. Like, I had
yeah.
to every week, I had to send an email. It was very serious, and I had to, and it was taking hours of my time. And
Yes.
honestly, like, I am a teacher. I came here to teach. I did not
Mm,
come here to sit and write emails for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And the emails teach, and at the same time, I was giving away tons of free content in the emails. I was feeling burnt out. I was feeling depleted. I was starting to feel resentful. I was having to pay someone to help me, and it wasn't translating into sales. It just wasn't.
yeah.
And the thing is that then it became about, well, why am I doing this? And so I stopped. And then I said to my email list, well, I'm going to email you once a month. And I don't know, I did that for a little while, and honestly, I haven't emailed them in probably 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And do I feel that little, oh, you should email your list, blah blah blah? Sure, I get that feeling. And at the same time, they know how to find me. I'm not hard to find. If someone really wants to find me, it's very simple. So if
Yeah.
someone really wants to work with me, they can very easily find me.
Yeah.
And a big part of how I've been able to sustain a 26-year so far career is that I only work with the people that are a match for me. And we talked about this a little before. You were talking about it before. And for me, it's like, I only work with people who are already motivated. And that
Yeah.
sounds really funny. My background is in expressive arts therapy and fitness. Well, in fitness, a lot of people expect us to motivate them. That's not me. I'm not that person. I would burn out in 30 seconds if I had to motivate people. I'm not interested in that. I want the people who are already motivated,
Yeah.
right? And so that's what I mean. The people who want to work with me will find me. They do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I don't have to motivate them. I don't have to convince them. I don't want to.
Yeah.
It's just not anything I'm interested in spending my energy doing.
Yeah.
So that's really the thing too, is like I getting closer to 50, and I have a like autoimmune thyroid condition that I navigate, and it's like, well, how much energy do I have, and how do I want to spend my life? I don't want to spend it doing the things I don't feel like doing.
Yeah. No, like honestly, and I feel like everybody has a version. Like they have a version of what works for them. And I've seen it consistently. If that version works for you, you really don't need the other ones unless something like COVID where you're just like, okay, like maybe your version was like doing seminars at the library and it was no longer possible, right? But
Yeah.
in general, there's something that works for you. And email just I don't get a lot of conversion on email. They'll click through to my social media, they'll click through to all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it is kind of my social media that people will find me. And I don't again, I don't post regularly. I don't post a lot. I post a lot more now than I used to, and it's still not much. And people just message me.
Right.
They just message me when they're ready and they're interested.
Right.
And yeah, and it hasn't always been clear. It hasn't always been clear how to sign up for my stuff, but people find me anyways,
Hmm.
you know? And so I think it is like one of those things. In the beginning, I didn't have a lot of energy. I didn't have a lot of energy. I wasn't very flexible. I didn't want to do a lot of things, and I didn't, you know? And
Hmm.
it worked out. People found me anyways.
Hmm.
I found the right, I ended up having the right conversations with the right people. It just
Hmm.
happened.
Hmm.
Um, and again, it's not out of no effort from me. It wasn't like I wasn't posting at all. That's
Right.
kind of a different thing. But
Hmm.
again, there's some people who like teaching is really how they bring people in. So they'll
Mhm,
put up a class notice and they give a kind of teach webinar type of thing. And
mhm,
that's how people find them.
mhm,
And it
mhm.
and it's not a lot of stuff.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I started doing so I do have a Facebook group, which is great. It's like you're saying, it's not that I'm not online, I am. And I have people in my Facebook group. Any of them could message me at any moment if they wanted to work with me. I also post in there, what's available, but I just do it like once or twice. I don't do it over and over and over again. And I have started teaching once a month in my Facebook group, like for one of my year-long programs, right? Well, it's the only year-long program that I'm offering moving forward. And the thing is that, you know, again, like it's once a month that I'm
Yeah.
in there, and but they know how to find me.
Yeah.
They know how to find me. And same thing. I have a Facebook page. I have, Instagram. I have all the stuff. So it's not that I'm not there. That was a really good point you made. Like, it's not that I'm not there at all. I do have a
Right.
presence, but it's not one that I have to keep feeding. I guess that's the feeling I had with that pouring into cups, pouring into cups. I had to frantically feed the machine. It almost felt like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I was
No,
getting
because that's the
fried.
way
I was
people
burnt
make it
out.
seem. It's like, ah, like all the
I was
things.
burnt out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I don't know. It's just and again, it may seem for me at least, it may seem a little bit different moving forward because of how I decided to set up things. But trust me, it's a very similar thing. I've just gotten way more efficient in how I am putting out content and all that kind of thing. And so it may look a little different this year, but like it's but again, my goal, really, my minimum goal is once a week,
Hmm.
you know?
Nice.
It's like really to say somebody will see something once a week. I didn't say like, millions of people will see. No, somebody is going to see something, you know.
Right.
Sometimes I only speak to the people who have already worked with me at some capacity.
Hmm. Yeah.
Sometimes I only reach out to them because I know that they're already interested and that they would actually be maybe a little annoyed with me if I didn't tell them what was next, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But,
Yes.
yeah, and I think that's, like, a different thing. It's like, "Yeah, I'm just telling people what's happening." I'm not really I don't really think of it as marketing as much as just think of it as like, well, if you're interested, like this is the
Mhm.
time when you should jump in. I think of the same way when I run, my year long discounts and that kind of thing. Like if I don't tell everybody, then they're going to be real pissed when they realize like
Right.
this is the only time of year that I offer this, right?
Yeah. Yeah, same. I have a very similar,
Yeah,
attitude and approach because they do get
yeah,
upset if we don't tell them,
right. So yeah, so
which is
we
fair enough.
recognize that as well. Out of experience mostly. But
Right.
yeah, like,
But
but
that's
yeah,
service. You see,
yeah,
there's the distinction. That's service. That's customer service. That's
right.
serving the people that we know, like you said, are already interested, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. And yeah, and are already and like you said, already fits. I already know they work well with me. I already know that they're interested in the information that I am presenting,
Mhm.
and so that's proven already. And the other people, they get more of that information style type stuff. So that looks a little bit different because it's kind of like, oh, well, this is what this means, this is what that means, this is what's going on over here. Like if you want to learn more about this part, come over there. That's
Yeah.
more of that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same, same.
Yeah.
And I think, it's really I think for me, part of the reason why that I'm doing things the way that I am is, before COVID times, like I had no online presence at all. Like no, I've been living on a tiny little island of 850 people, three ferries away from the biggest city in Canada, or second biggest city, no, third biggest city in Canada. Anyway, who knows? I don't know what the statistics are nowadays, but far, 10 hours from the nearest big-ish city. And all my business was by referral. Always, 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 always. It was never online. And like you said earlier, like when COVID hit, that's when I had to bring things online because I couldn't just do things the way that I had before, especially because I work with elders mostly. So that made a big difference. And so I'm so thankful to have the online presence. I'm super, super thankful for that. And at the same time, I still do prefer to do business by referral. So I really think that it's important for people to ask themselves if they're struggling with this whole topic of, authenticity and consistency and posting and all of that. Um, how do you want to build your business? Like what works for you? Right. For me, referral really works. It just does. And it always has. And so for me, that's still my number one way by far.
Yeah.
And so that's another reason why I'm not pouring more energy into the online presence part of things because, and also as you were saying earlier, like, grow your business, how big do you want your team to be, all of that. I'm really satisfied being me with, help sometimes. I do have help sometimes, which is great, one person. And for me, that's the right size. That's the right size for me. I don't want to start a school. Oh my gosh. I don't want to have like a big, you know, um, I'm the kind of person like if people are following me, I might not even notice. And I look
Yeah.
behind, I'm like, oh wow, look, that person's following me. How about that? I'm
Yeah.
not trying to like, it's just my leadership style. And the people that this is also a really important piece based in this the conversation that we're having. The people that I magnetize also are people that understand that agility is number one to me. So they're people that if I make adjustments to what I'm doing as we go, they understand that that's part of my, not to sound conceited, but part of my brilliance, quite honestly.
Mhm.
And that is going to serve them the best than if I try to be any other way. And they love me for it.
Yeah.
And that is a very key point.
Yes. That, feeling not restricted by your businesses, that's a big part of it. If you know, and I'm, I hate to say this, but like, but I've seen it happen, and I know that people will forgive you if you're honest, right? I am not, so just so you know, like I don't like to be seen as flaky. I don't.
Mhm,
I'm not saying that I never forget anything or anything to that aspect. I am human, but I am in my own way consistent, like,
mhm,
and what I stand for, and how the level of service I give to the people that I do work with me, that is very consistent. And but I've seen people who are a little flaky, right?
mhm,
Just be very open about it,
mhm. Right.
very open about it. And people are just like, yeah, she forgot. And it's just because she's very open about it. And she's like, I'm a flawed human being and flawed things happen. And,
Mhm,
it's just what the way it is,
mhm,
and
mhm,
very
mhm,
successful business. And
mhm,
I think, we all have our strengths.
mhm,
We all
mhm,
have our strengths. Her brilliance lies more in her level of energy and how much she shows up, and what,
mhm.
like the fact that she is constantly present, right? Like that's a different kind of consistency, right?
Oh, yeah.
And for those who just want a teacher to be around all the time, like she serves that, right?
Mhm, mhm,
And also
mhm,
with her mountain, she has obviously a lot of information and very, very great level of service as well. But like, but again, not hiding the fact that, oops, sometimes I think so fast that I miss things, right?
mm,
And so for some people that looks like flaky, right?
mm.
And I think that's okay. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that's okay. Some people, like, everybody's brain works differently, you know?
I love that you just said that. That's it. And I think we're learning so much more and more about that. I remember probably about 15 years ago, I was living in East Vancouver and I went to a yoga studio to take a class. And I was already a yoga teacher at the time. I've been a yoga teacher since 2004. And this woman who I love her teaching, I'm still in touch with her on social media. She came to teach a class and she showed up. And you remember my background's in professional dance where you have to do it no matter what.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
if you physically can do it without like bleeding all over the stage or like making it obvious that something's wrong, you got to do it.
Totally.
Like, unless it's like
Yeah.
there was no there was no excuses ever. Like it didn't Gen X, like, this was before people would, get, upset about it. Like we just had to do it. It didn't matter
Yeah.
what was going
It
on.
wasn't even a
And
question.
yeah, so that was what
Yeah.
I came from, right? And I've had to do a lot of healing around that. But I showed up for her yoga class and I was so excited. She's one of my favorite yoga teachers. To this day, she's one of my favorite yoga teachers. And I got there and she said, "Oh, there were a bunch of us there. It was a full class. I'm not feeling up to it today." And she canceled. And we were already all
Wow.
there on our mats.
Yeah.
And I remember in the moment feeling kind of mad and feeling like, oh, what a flaky thing to do. And I
Mm,
went into all this judgment and it's a yoga class. I mean, what a place to
right.
be sitting in judgment. So ridiculous when I take a
Uh,
step back and
the
think about it.
programming, right?
But I
Takes
totally
over.
was.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, oh, she should just do it. And, we're all
Like, we're all
here.
here, she's here, what's the problem?
It was honestly one of the biggest learnings for me at the time was to
Yeah,
start, and it actually made a huge difference in my life trajectory to be able to say, wow, like we can actually do that, and like the world won't end and she wouldn't get fired and everyone wouldn't, because she was, I think, an employee, or anyway, like
yeah,
in my day and the way I was raised, that would have been it. I mean, in the professional dance training that I was in, if we said, I don't feel like it, oh my gosh, they wouldn't have just kicked us out and replaced us. They would have never had us back again,
right,
ever.
and told all their friends.
Right. And
Totally.
so it was a very different paradigm. And
Yeah,
so I'm so thankful to her that she opened up that whole conversation of like, and also the teacher, like this is, being a teacher is a very sacred thing. And
mm,
when people are showing up demanding that the teacher teach, well, is that really energetically correct? I don't think so.
right.
The teacher, for whatever reason, doesn't feel like they can in that moment.
Yeah,
Is that really energetically correct to like demand
that's
that the teacher do it when they're not, for whatever reason, feeling it? You know?
yeah. No, I think respecting each other in those times is vital to, again, how we move forward and as a society, because I know that that triggers me, right? Like even as you're saying, it's like, um, like, cause same, like I was grew up, if you say something, you do it. If you,
Mhm.
you know, if there's a whole class in front of you, like you don't feel like it, oh well. And but I know that I want that freedom, right? I want to,
Mhm.
I don't feel like I'm there yet just because of the level of triggering that's going on right now. But like, but I want to, like, at someday just be able to say, like, you know what? I'm gonna cancel. Like, you know what? I'm not up to it today. Um,
Mhm.
it's just one of those days, client people, and and be okay with myself about it, right?
Mhm.
And so I know my friends feel okay doing that with me,
Mhm.
and I and so I really value that as well. Like, I don't want somebody to feel like they have to lie, right? Like, because that's how it used to be.
Mhm.
And again, it's our generation of, well, there better be a daggone good reason,
Yeah.
right? Like, if you're not showing up, you better be on your way to the hospital. You better be incapacitated. You better be like, right? Uh, so, I think I'd rather somebody just say, you know what, I'm just not up to it. I'm just not up to
Mhm.
it today. And I think that just open, honest communication, the same way, like I said, I value that with my friends because they know as a friend that there's just times I'm just not, like, I don't want words.
Mhm.
I, I
Mhm.
don't want words with people.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Mhm.
there's just those times. And so I feel like that keeps us open enough to say, I'm just not up to it today. And they can do the same with
Right.
me, right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
even if there
Yeah.
is something scheduled, right? So, I think that's something that I want more of for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because that's been like something that I've, been working through myself the past few years. And I used to be very judgmental. Like, I'm originally from Toronto, which is the biggest city in Canada, and there's like zero tolerance for anything that's remotely flaky in Toronto. Like, you just don't. You just don't.
Yeah.
It's just no, And so I used to be so judgmental of anything that I thought was flaky. If I even sensed even a tinge of flaky, I'd go right into judgment and about it. And so for myself to like what you're just saying, if there's a day where I didn't feel up to it or whatever reason, for me that would never have been, I wasn't allowed to miss school when I was a kid unless I was like throwing up or like you said needed to like go to the doctor or something. But that was
Yeah.
it. There was no other reason to miss school ever. And it's really interesting because I just really think that how I've started to navigate that in myself, because I teach a lot of classes. And there have been some times where I've had to not cancel, but postpone, until the next week, because like I'm teaching all the time, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and how I navigated that, I've only done it a couple times, but how I've navigated it is, and this is such a great bridge in this conversation here, is I've used the internet. So what I've done on my YouTube channel, which I don't promote, I think I have like 19 subscribers or something. I don't use it to like get popular. Like it's not what
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
using it for. So I have way more private videos that are like unlisted videos that are not public facing. I think I only have two public facing ones right now, but I have many on the back end.
Yeah.
And so what I'll do is I have those things in place where if I do need to miss a class that week, like so it would just be rescheduled to the next week. I'm not canceling it or anything. Then there's a video there that my students can use, and I've created it specifically for that class. So I'm
Oh, I
talking
see.
specifically to those students. I'm teaching specifically in the style that I teach them. I'm talking as if they're there with me because I've taught them so many times that that's easy for me to do.
Yeah.
And they just click on that and they have something. So I haven't an attachment, theory. We talk about dropping people. I haven't just dropped them,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? They have something they can use, right?
Yeah.
And they know that they can. And that there's one video that one of my groups of students that I've been teaching since 2015. That video's got a lot of views, and it's not because of me necessarily canceling. I think I've only, like I said, postponed that class maybe twice in years.
Yeah.
The thing is that like they also know they can go back to it anytime.
Yeah.
So that's a way that I can be there for them. And it is for them specifically. It's not generic. It's specifically for them that they can go back to again and again and again and feel me and feel my presence, but I can rest,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's a really beautiful thing. That's one really lovely way that we can marry this online world, with our more organic maybe ways of being, that they can have that consistency of our presence through recordings we've made specifically for them
Exactly.
so that
Yeah.
they have access to us, but and it is for them, but we also get to rest when we need to.
Exactly. Yeah, and
Mhm.
I think again, especially if that's something that's feasible for you and that feels good for you, that's again a beautiful way, and that's kind of how I decided to shift my presence online is through video because I'm like, okay, well, I'm not always accessible, but I can leave my have my information be accessible, and so that's
Mhm.
how I've decided to do it is on YouTube. And
Mhm.
so that's the project I'll be working this year is like getting my ideas out on YouTube because not everybody's ready to come work with me, and not everybody can. And so that's one of the ways I decided to serve and show up and have hopefully more people be able to use and grow from my information.
Right.
So
And
yeah.
it's so important because honestly, like, if I even think of that group I was just talking about, like they would much rather me take a day and rest and be good, feel good, than show up feeling terrible, looking terrible. They would, the whole class, because they care about me. My students
Yeah,
and clients, they
yeah,
care about me.
Totally.
Thank goodness they care about me, you know?
Yeah.
And if they saw that I was completely fried and I'm showing up trying to serve them, they'd be more worried about me. They wouldn't be getting a benefit. Like, again, I teach holistic wellness, right?
Yeah.
So they wouldn't be getting the benefit of the class so much because they'd the whole time be like, oh gosh, Rachel looks really awful. Is she okay?
And
They'd
that's
be
another
worried
thing. Are
about me.
you are you,
And is that service?
showing up like in as a role model as well, right? As
Mhm.
living what we know to be correct. And I think that's always kind of the crux as people who are really passionate about what they do and really passionate um, about serving and wanting to show up for people. I think that's again, it almost
Yeah.
brings us full circle back to the healing versus martyrdom thing, like or service versus martyrdom thing. And I think healing is the same way
Mhm.
because healing is one of these things that again historically we've been pouring ourselves into people, we've been caretaking in our own
Mhm.
energy externally, right?
Right.
Again, around the same time, I think that that paradigm shifted where it's like, yeah, no, you don't use your own energy to heal somebody. You tap into universal energy, and you don't and it's not you, it's not just about you, right? It's about just the connection between all of us, and
Mhm.
representing that, in our work and how we are living and showing up for others, I think is becoming a higher calling in a lot of
Mhm.
ways. Like how much can we show people that that we can be of service, but not responsible for somebody else's
Oh, yeah.
growth or
Yeah.
whatever they need in a healing context.
Mhm. Mhm.
Those are two different things. You're not responsible for other people. They
Mhm.
won't never get there without you, like that's not a thing.
Right.
But
Yeah.
you
Thank you for
know
saying that, yeah,
yeah,
because that's
so
a big misconception that people have, and that's
yeah,
very, very old paradigm.
it is, and
That's like
it's so
medieval times
ego-centered.
paradigm. Yeah.
It's ego-centered. Well, I don't really have a problem with ego, but I do have a problem with, again, kind of this hierarchy style leadership patriarchy thing
Mhm.
um, where we were just saying that, we're the only ones that can get you there. That's not real.
Mm-mm.
It's not a real thing.
No,
It's not true.
no.
It's not actually happening.
It's so
Mm.
important because again, like, I know that you and I are both about empowerment just because I've known, I know your work and I know
Yeah,
I know you.
totally.
And the thing is, that's not empowering to
Yeah.
tell people that their whole life and their whole wellness and their whole whatever depends on one person and whether
One
they can access that
person
person and
or one system.
right.
You have to
Yeah,
do it
it's sad.
exactly like this. There's no other way. Like, if you want success, this is the only way you can do it. Like, I am over that. I'm so
Yeah.
over that. It's like, yeah, no, it's not real. It's not true. And
Mm-mm.
we are all so different that success looks different for us. The same way enlightenment and spirituality looks different for each one of us.
Mhm.
We all have our own path. We all have our
Yeah.
own keys. We all have our own mechanisms for magnetizing people to us and for also uh, showing up, right? Showing up in that service. Like,
Mm.
how we show up is different.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, that's my big, big soapbox. So I won't go all the way there, but we're all different. And, finding what's right for you is a big part of this process.
Absolutely, absolutely, and really asking ourselves, it's interesting. I was teaching on Wednesday night about self-care, and we did this clustering exercise, just like where you write self-care in the middle and do like the clustering, the words that come off of that.
Mm.
And I was amazed, I hadn't made a new demonstration of that since probably like April 2020. Like I had just been, sending out the handout because I had it in a PDF or JPEG, that I had done before. And it was so different this time. And that's the thing is, and that's exactly what I was saying to my students. And that's why I was doing it in that moment is like, I'm not the same person now as I was in April 2020. Like the things are going to, there's going to be some of the same things. They're going to be, some things will be consistent, like nature is on my self-care clustering, but
Yeah.
so many things were different. And I think it's so important for us to remember that, we're organic beings, we're not automatons. We're
Yeah.
not,
We're
like
changing all the time.
all the time. And
Yeah.
thank goodness, really, empowerment and transformation, which is what so many of us heart-led entrepreneurs are really interested in. That comes part and parcel with that, is that we do transform and we are different. And sometimes we can, as leaders, forget to ask ourselves those questions of what is serving me now, what is serving me today, like what do I need, and not just going to the answers that we made up before, because that's an old
Yeah.
iteration of us.
Oh my
And
gosh, that's so much. I just had this conversation with a client because um, I always think if I don't say, and I say it in 1,000 different ways in sessions, that if you're coming to your voice assuming what it's going to do, then you can pretty much bet that it won't, that it's not going to happen, right? Because the voice is different. Like it changes every moment of every day, much less, daily. And so showing up to our work the same way is getting present to what's up for us today and where we're coming from today. And being aligned with that is going to give us, again, our highest potential of service. Um, and so it just like kind of, when you said that, just blew me right open because it was just like, oh my gosh, this is so much of that. And how much are we allowing ourselves to show up in presence to our leadership work, right? Because of the traditions and the old way of doing things, we might feel like we have to show up the way it's always been, right?
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
and and how much more could we serve if we just let our spirits and our presence show up in that moment the way it is best and felt unfolding, you know.
Yeah, and even, circling this around to business again is like I could have just said, "Oh, I already made that asset. I made that asset and money. I don't need to reinvent the asset because I made it already."
Right.
And I'm wasting my time, or I'm, duplicating my work or whatever. But when, I teach a lot of experiential things, and so why wouldn't I just create it new in the moment, especially teaching leaders the
Yeah.
leadership,
Yeah.
right? There's this mental thing of like, yes, well, it's true that many of us created many online assets over the past few years. I sure did. And that we can keep using many of them again and again. And yes, that is efficient. There are ones that we can look at anew, especially if they're experiential activities we're taking our clients and students through,
Mm.
that it is actually of greater service to them to do it with them in real time and
Yeah.
have those like, ooh, that was a surprise. Like, oh my gosh, I had people on my self-care thing. That has never happened before. I had friends on there, and like I am
Yeah.
majorly introverted. I totally hear what you're saying. Like when I'm in
Yeah.
my house, I hardly talk. Like
Yeah.
I'm very quiet when I'm in my own personal time. Very, very introverted, very friendly. I love people, but very introverted. And so I was shocked when I saw friends on my self-care clustering.
You're like, oh wow, that's a thing.
Right? And then
Yeah.
my students had that experience of me having a surprise, right? And for
Yes.
them, that was like, wow, she can still be surprised by her own work even after all this time. It's like, yeah, I can, because this is
Yeah.
presence. This is presence, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. And what comes, yeah, it's always new. Presence is always new. That's what we love about it, right? We can't get bored by
Yeah.
presence. Um, we can get bored by so many things, but not presence. Um, yeah, I think, yeah, experiential exercises are that. They're always going to surprise you, like, oh, that's coming up for me. That hasn't happened before. Like, really? That's what we're doing today? Always it's like, oh, okay, especially when we're having that conversation with our body, because it's amazing how much we're disconnecting from our body. Anyways, you know what I'm saying. So yeah, so it's always revelatory, and
Yeah.
that your students and clients get to see that happen for you just as much as you expect it to happen for them, is I think it's a beautiful, profound moment, you know?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's true authenticity again, right? That's
Yeah.
again like authentic leadership,
True.
right? It's
Yeah.
authentic leadership to let your students see your process. So my background, like I said, is in expressive arts therapy is one of my big trainings. That's what my master's degree is in, and it's all experiential learning. It's all like phenomenological experiential learning, and having these like aha moments and breakthroughs. And so if I'm leading and I'm not doing my leadership or being my leadership, I should say, that's another paradigm shift that
Yeah.
way, then am I really leading authentically? If I'm leading experiential activities by rote,
Yeah.
is that,
I
you know?
always like alarm bells go off when that starts happening. The only time that happens, it's usually when my energy's dropping.
Yeah,
And I was like,
same.
okay, do the thing. All right, do the thing. But I always, what always jams me out of it, because if I'm not present, they're not present, right? Like,
Right.
and so that always jams me out of it, because I'm like, that's not connected. Like, I get frustrated with them. Like, you can't be frustrated with them and you're not doing the thing, you know? So,
Yeah.
so yeah, like, not that it never happens. No, I'm not perfect, but,
No, me either.
those are kind of like my cues.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's like what again, what a blessing to have our students see us be surprised by our
Yeah.
own work. Then they see like again that we're authentic, we're real. We're not just oh, and so the other piece of what I wanted to say about the expressive arts therapy training is that so I was trained in feminist therapy, right?
Mm.
Because that's part of my training is to be a therapist. I'm not a practicing therapist, but I was trained in that style. And in feminist therapy, the way that I was taught it and understood it, this was like more than 20 years ago now, was that basically we disclose any little bits of information about ourselves and our own process that might help move their process along, and also gets rid of any power differential. So I'm
Oh,
not there on a pedestal like I'm perfect and I've got this all figured out, and I've reached perfect balance and I'm never going to have a rough moment again or a squeezy moment or whatever.
yeah.
That's not authentic, right?
Yeah.
And so I really love this training in feminist therapy that I got very early on, that taught me that it's actually very, very useful to let people see our process, because first of all, they learn from it. That's the whole point of letting them see it. It's not just for our own whatever. It's like I could
Yeah.
do that on my own time. It's for them to learn from it,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
And also then they get to see our real authentic self. And I'm really glad that my students and clients care about me. That's
Yeah.
important, and
Yeah.
so all of that, you put all of that into there, and that's my style of authentic leadership. That has a lot to do with it. So I'm really transparent. 2 weeks ago, when I was feeling burnt out, I was actually teaching about burnout at the time, which is another thing that happens with teachers a lot, is that we go through whatever we're teaching about while we're teaching about it.
Yeah.
And I was just transparent about it. I said, look, you can see there were bags under my eyes, no amount of makeup was covering them up. I was like, I'm burnt out and this is what I'm going to do about it. And then they saw
Yeah.
me come on this 2 days ago. I was like, look, I'm better because I
Yeah.
did those things.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's it. And
Yeah.
then they get the gift of seeing it in real life, real time, and
Yeah.
not just someone like, oh, I've got this all figured out. I'm perfect and nothing ever happens that I have to navigate. People don't learn from the perfect package picture. They learn from how do we navigate.
Right.
That's what they learn. Like,
Right.
because I teach about resilience, right?
Of
So, like,
course.
that's
Yeah.
right. So, if I just was like, I'm perfect all the time, would they really effectively learn resilience in the same way as if
I
they see
know.
my own process of like, oh, she
Yeah.
looks awful. Oh, wow, she looks way better.
No,
I'm
it's
not saying
true.
that,
It's
I always
totally
want to do
true.
it that way. I don't
Right,
always want to do it
right.
that
I mean,
way. And,
there's always optimal and there's always life, life happens is what I like to say. So, but yeah, I think it's one of those things. I love that, because I was thinking, like, where's one of those examples I gave an example the other day. Oh yeah, that was There's no other way to call it. Like, that was bad. I was like, that's
Mm,
okay. And that's not even to me again, that's a way of saying that my energy is about to was dipping, right?
mm,
Because that's something I don't like to do is like judge a sound.
mm.
But in the example and the point of the example that I was trying to give, like it was not correlating, you
Oh,
know? And so yeah, just being able to say that and be like, whatever, like that's
mhm,
it happens,
mhm.
right? And like being okay with it myself and not feeling like I have to correct that and like, oh, let me show you how to do it perfectly now. And like not feeling it's not okay to be human and like to
Right.
make a mistake. I think is something that it's just one of those great teaching moments. So yeah, I feel like again, we could always have these conversations for 1,000
I know.
years.
We can talk for hours.
Yeah.
It's one
Because
long conversation that picks up and
yeah, well, and again, I feel like it's a reflection of our own ability to be present and to also uh, let that presence teach us, right? And so
Mm.
our conversations too, they usually just keep going until one of us says, actually, we shouldn't be doing this anymore. Like I actually have this other thing that I need to be doing. So I love it. I love it so much. So thank you so much, Rachel, for joining us
Yeah,
for this conversation. And
thank
who's to
you.
say, maybe Rachel will join us again for another one because again, we tend to be able to really get into the heart of things in that way that only presence can. So
Mm.
I appreciate that so
I
much.
appreciate it too. I appreciate you so much. Your presence in my life is a big gift.
Oh, same here, madame. Same here. So
Yay.
I will see you guys on the next authenticity project or just hang out at my YouTube channel because that's a thing this year. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.